remote session like this to be able to see each other. And then I always prefer a more interactive discussion. So, obviously, I leave it to your choice, but it'll be always helpful to do it in that manner. Now, let me try and put the slides up. Okay. Please let me know when you're able to see it. Mhm. Okay. Are you able to see anything? Because I'm trying to.
No, we can't see the slides yet.
Okay. All right. We've got somebody visible. Nice to see you, Aisha.
Thank you.
So, okay. Can you see anything at all?
Yes, we can see the PowerPoint now.
Excellent. All right. Okay. So, yeah. So let's start with today's topic then. So I had a very nice discussion with Dr. Ali Chima. I think it was probably about a couple of months ago. They were visiting Dubai, and he was kind enough to ask me to join him for a cup of coffee. And in that discussion, I was we were talking about many different things, and one of the things that came up was how do we prepare our future graduates, people on this call, for in the best way possible to really address the challenges that you will have ahead of you. And I think that all starts with how you present yourself at your first step of your employment career, which is through the interview process, right? So I think that's why this interview techniques, and there's various different ways of approaching this, but I've kind of tried to put together a brief outline to share with you in terms of what could be the best way to approach it. Before I do that, I think Yusra was kind enough to do an intro about me, but let me do it again just in case. Um, if anybody didn't understand or were able to hear. So I did my bachelor's at LUMS many years ago, 25 years ago actually, in 1999. Still feel very young, although it was quite some time back. I then got a British Evening Scholarship. Actually, after I did my BSc, I went and joined my first company, which is Reckitt Benckiser. You see that at the top of the on the right side, and I worked there for about 4 years. During that time, I applied for the British Evening Scholarship, which I was very lucky to get in 2003. And at the time, it was about 7,000 people who applied for it from across Pakistan, and about 35 people were successful. So it was a 0.5% success rate. And that took me to the UK. So with that scholarship, I went to the UK and I did my MBA there, and that was back in 2004. So even that's not 20 years ago. And after that, I continued my employment. So I worked with various different companies. I joined Kimberly Clark as a European marketing head. This was in 2008, 2009. I was amongst one of the youngest managers or leaders in Kimberly Clark in that role. I got then promoted into regional marketing director position for Middle East Africa. This was back in 2011. And then I became the general manager for all the Gulf countries. This was back in 2013. So, excuse me. So in 2013, I was a GM for all the Gulf countries, which basically included a cluster of 5 countries, so UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, Oman, Bahrain. And then in 2015, I joined a company called Barsdorf. So Barsdorf is the maker, for those of you who are not aware, they make a brand called Nivea, the blue tin. I'm sure a lot of people would have seen it, used it. It's available in Pakistan. They set up a legal entity in Pakistan, actually. And somebody from LUMS was appointed as the country manager for Barsdorf Pakistan as well, when I was leading the region. So then I worked with Barsdorf for 7 years, and started off initially as a general manager for Saudi Arabia, and then I got promoted to lead the entire region of Middle East, which was 16 countries. So I was based in Saudi, but traveled a lot, of course, and I was managing a cluster geography from Pakistan to Palestine, basically everything that was within this area. And then 2 years ago, I left Barsdorf to join my current organization, which is Yusra, you pronounced it very correctly. It's called Galderma. It's a Swiss company, and we basically make fillers and Botox. Not something that you guys would be using at this point in time in your life, maybe not even in the future. Um, and they also we also make a brand called Cetaphil, so that's for moisturizing cream and for various different skincare needs. I'm the regional president, and I head up a country, a region of 70 countries. So I'm responsible for Middle East, Africa, Russia, Turkey, and in my current role, I have a team of very senior leaders reporting into me. So I have six GMs of each of the different countries, plus another six directors. So the director of finance, director of supply chain, HR director, and the full team reporting into me. And we are about 280 people across the organization. Um, so in my last 22 years of work life, I've lived in about six countries. I worked across 35 countries, and I must have interviewed and hired, and in some cases, unfortunately, also fired maybe hundreds of people. So I think this is a topic which is very important for me, and I enjoy sharing this and talking about this. I've also built, and led very high performing teams, focused on driving market outperformance, but also, driving compliance and ethical standards. So that's me. It's a lot of stuff. But I think it's always important to know a little bit about the person who's presenting, So I thought maybe I should start with one slide. Now, I cannot see any of the audience, Yusra. I cannot see it because I've got the PowerPoint in front of me. So in case if there are any questions or comments, any hands up, I would not see it. So may I just request if you could let me know, please?
0320 वाला 0320 023 47 82।
Guys, please mute yourself. Sorry for that. Yeah, sure, Adil, I'll do that.
Okay, excellent. So the agenda for today, like I said, it's only about a few slides. It's not a lot. But I thought I should cover the key points at least. And please stop me and ask questions as you feel appropriate. So we'll talk a little bit about the intro to interviewing skills, and really from an employer's perspective, what does an employer, because it's very important that you understand what your audience is trying to get out of an interview session, right? So really understand what they are there to achieve, not just you as an interviewee, but the interviewer. And then how can you prepare for interviews? And again, it's various different approaches, but I think some simple ones that I always feel worked for myself, but I also recommend to others. A few tips, for people who are going for interviews. I know that some of you will be ready now. Either you are in your final years or you are coming to the end of your final year, or will be soon. So I think it's very important to have these tips to your hand. What are the different types of interviews? So there are obviously various different ways organizations operate. So it'll be good to see that. And then what are the types of questioning techniques? Was there a
Sorry to
comment?
interrupt, but we cannot see your slides. It's just the first slide that we can see.
Oh, it's so moved.
No, it hasn't moved.
Oh, thank you for letting me know. Is it on the interviewing techniques still?
Yes, it's on the first slide. Interviewing
Oh,
techniques,
wow,
Adil Baracha.
that's very strange.
Yeah, now we can see the second slide.
Okay. Is there a can you see the second slide now still? Should I just present it off and not present it in the slideshow mode, just like this?
Yeah, sure, yeah, sure. Because
Can you see this now? Can you see the third slide?
yes, we can.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So at least, yeah, let's just follow this. It's not ideal, but it's better than not seeing anything. Thanks for letting me know. Uh, Still visible?
Yes, it's the
Okay.
third slide.
Yeah, so this was a slide I was using for my own intro, which I think, anyways, I think we don't need to go through again. But that was the second slide, let's say, of the deck, and now I'm onto the agenda side. So, like I said, I mean, I'm just going to cover that would be the outline of the discussion for today. So, the intro to interviewing skills, prep for the interviews, tips, some, what are the different types of interviews, types of questioning techniques. An approach that I've always used, I call it the car approach. It's something which is quite useful, also very simple. I'll talk you through that in terms of what you can keep that in the back of your mind as you go for these discussions. And then if we have time and interest and volunteers, we could do some role plays. I would be very happy to be the interviewer. Um, and I will then be very happy to take any questions if there are any from anyone. Okay. So with that, yeah, let's talk a little bit about what is the employer's perspective. When they are inviting somebody for the interview, what does an employer want? Because I think that's very, very, you need to place yourself in their shoes, right? Everybody, when you get invited for your first interview, can be overwhelming. You can be very excited about it. And, a lot of, it's very possible that a lot of times people just show up um, thinking what they're trying to get out of it. There's nothing wrong about that, but it's very, very important that you understand what the employer is also, because the hiring person is also under pressure, to interview somebody, to find the right talent. It's not easy, right? And for them, what they're trying to look at is they're trying to evaluate your personality, not just your technical skills, because obviously at this particular stage in your life, and not a lot of people would have a lot of work experience, right? So at this particular point in time, either they're offering summer internships that might lead to a job, or they're offering an entry level position. Either ways, whichever position that is, they're looking to evaluate you as a person. But what is your motivators? What are your derailers? And I think that is very, very important, right? So it's personality and the cultural fit. They want to hire people that they can keep for a long period of time. So they want people who join at the entry level and then build their career through the organization. So reducing turnover is also a big part of it, because no company wants to hire people. I certainly don't. Like I said, I lead a team of a very large organization. The biggest cost to me is if I hire people who are then leaving in 6 months' time, 3 months' time, because of the cost and the time that goes into training people, and then to lose them, nobody wants to do. So also, I think it's very important that they're looking at it for the longer term. Um, they will also obviously look at your skills and experience, but at this particular stage, like I said, skills and experience might be limited. It will be more skills than experience, because you probably will not have that much. So within skills, also it's important that you choose the top two or three max, because the, that's the real value, and I'll tell you how to approach that as well, in terms of what you decide to build your discussion on. We talked about cultural fit. It's very, very important for major organizations, because nobody wants to bring people in. And I think this is the most important part. I was a student once. You guys are it now. I'm sure we're all we have our own sort of ways of doing things, and a lot of times, we can be rebellious. We can be very self-driven and say no, my opinion and my word is the most important one, and that's the only one that counts. That's fine, but it's very important that you are very clear about your own personality, and as well as the organization. No organization adjusts their culture to allow for people coming in, because that's their DNA and that's what they're built on, particularly large organizations that are multinationals. So they would always look for the best cultural fit, and not necessarily bringing people in could be disruptors to that. Disruptors to the overall running of the organization innovation, yes, but not doing it in ways that disrupts the entire culture of the organization. So that's very important. And so they are looking to select the best candidate in that perspective, and they're looking at you not just for that particular job, like for that internship or that entry level position, but also looking at you for the next 2 to 3 positions. So in terms of if you bring somebody in an assistant brand manager level position, does this person have the potential of becoming a marketing manager one day? That's typically how the employer looks at the interviewees. When you come into the process. So if I can underline this, interviews are a significant time and money commitment, even from the employer's perspective. Um, and they're really looking to get a successful outcome out of it. So it's not just that the people who are going for the interview are the ones who are feeling a bit nervous. Also, the ones who are coming to interview you are equally under pressure because they want to get the best outcome and they want to see you successful. So I think it's very important to bear this in the back of your mind. So let me take a bit of a pause. So far, I've been going non-stop. Are there any thoughts, questions, comments? Everybody's able to follow through so far. I'll just go back to the window again because I can't see the. Just is everything clear so far? You were able to hear me?
Yes, yes, we could. One of the students couldn't, but then he managed.
Okay, excellent.
Everything is going good.
Great. Let me go back to it then. Right. Okay. So I think now that we sort of have a little bit of a, let's say, an insight on the employer's perspective, let's shift to now us. So what are some of the things people can do to prepare for interviews? Let me start with the first one, which is the most important point. I cannot emphasize how important it is to prepare for your interview. So prepare, 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 and what you can do to prepare. I think that's also very important. So first of all, let's suppose we're. I know that I know that it can be quite sometimes competitive to even land an interview. Maybe a couple of jobs come up, 30, 40, 50 people apply for it. So what really stands out between you and why your CV will be shortlisted versus somebody else? And I think that's the the first step, which is super critical. So even before you go into the interview, there's a pre-interview stage. And my suggestion to people is always to really spend time to understand the job. Whenever that's advertised or you hear about it, try to get as much insight about it. What are the responsibilities for the role? What is the you are looking for the person? Because then once when you know that, and you've looked up at the organization, you read about them, ensure that your CV, and it might be a simple CV because you don't have to have a detailed CV, but make sure that your CV is structured accordingly. A lot of times we prepare one CV, everybody has done that, I think. We prepare one simple template and we send it to like 100 different organizations. There's nothing wrong with that. But in a lot of times, those CVs will not be looked at because people would know that this is not a good fit for what they're offering. Now, if you do understand that organization and you can make some slight tweaks and adjustments to your CV that makes it a bit more relevant for that role and for that company, I think that will always make your CV stand out from somebody else. So I think it's very important to find out as much as you can about the job and then see if you're able to reflect that a little bit in the way you structure your CV. I also would highly, highly recommend before anybody is going for an interview. Let's suppose you've done that, you've sent your CV, and you were very lucky, and you got the interview call. The next stage, again, of the pre-interview stage B, I would call it, is read as much as you can about the company. Go to their website, read about their core values, their strategy, their vision. Uh, Download the annual reports. All of this stuff is available very easily on their websites for most public limited companies, I would say, and also the large private limited companies that you might not find their annual reports, but you'll find a lot of stuff on their websites. I'm sure you guys are aware. Please read up as much as you can. So you're going in knowing about their product portfolio, knowing about what they sell, what they are looking to achieve in the long term, who their management is, and what the core values are. So again, it's part of the prep. And then finally, if you're able to know the names of the people who might interview you, right? Sometimes you're not aware, you only find out on the day and you go in and you see the people. But if you are, I would highly recommend to read up also on the interviewers specifically. Check their background, know who they are. Maybe they're an ex-graduate of LUMS, maybe they are people that you might have heard of from somewhere. But also, it's important to know who your audience will be. Okay, so these are some of the tips. Again, this list is not exhaustive. There's a lot of other stuff that people can do, but I think the bottom line here is to make sure that you spend a good amount of time preparing for that interview before you are even setting your foot in, because you need to know what you're about to tackle, right? You need to know what you're signing up for, and going blinded by it or going unaware. Some people still end up doing a great job. I mean, it depends on how you wake up that morning, but you will have a much higher chance of success if you have done this, because that's what also your interviewers would be looking for, as to if you've done your research, you're really keen on the job, and you've done, your fair share of due diligence to find out about the organization and the company. Okay. So yeah, so those are some of the things to look at. And then some of the tips I can offer as well. I think the first one you touched on, research, super critical. Research the company, understand its mission and its values, familiarize with recent news, know what's going on with it, right? I mean, a lot of companies are either booming, but some companies might be going through a massive restructure. They might be going through a massive share price decline. All those things happen. And so just understand the context in which you are currently meeting that organization. I think that'll help you to also have the right kind of conversation, and it will be appreciated by your interviewers. The second part is practice. I think what we're doing here is a little bit of that, but also I think go beyond this. So practice some common questions. I mean, there are different types of questions that you might get. I'll touch on them in the next slide, but um, this could be either very technical questions, so about certain skill sets that you might go for. So if you're applying for a computer science role with in an organization focused on very technical knowledge, then I think you need to be clear about that. Or you could be applying for a marketing position at an advertising agency, and that would be very different. It's just about, like I said, it's just about which company and what sort of role you're applying for, but also behavioral questions, because this is very important. At this stage, a lot of people don't have a lot of uh, experience in terms of hands-on, but behaviorally, how you stand out. Were you part of your societies, any of the LUM society that you were as a student? Did you lead any projects? How do you work as part of a team? All those kind of things. Sports, do you like sports? Which sports? And then how did you perform in it? So I think all of those things are very, very important. It's just how you structure them, and practice those questions as well to deliver them. I cannot emphasize the importance of how we dress up. I know that the world and most of the corporate culture has become very, very casual. It's all fine, nothing wrong with that. I dress casual to work as well. But I think you have one shot at making a good impression. And I always say that do your best at it. Do dress appropriately. It's not like somebody's going to throw you out of the interview if you go wearing a polo shirt or tracks or jeans and stuff. I mean, that's typically what we wear. It's fine. A lot of companies are smart casual, but it is your one chance to make an impact. And therefore, I would always suggest I would always overdress rather than dress. So do understand a little bit more about those things. I think those are some of the slight tips I can again offer. Be on time. I mean, I cannot again emphasize the importance of punctuality. Yeah, so those are some of the tips. And then in terms of interview types, so these are the 3 or 4 different types of interviews you could potentially expect. This is, and every company has their um own structure, own process. Some interviews can be very structured. So you will have interviewers who are very serious. They don't want to really have any ice breaking. They don't want to be a friend. They're literally there. They might be meeting 10 to 15 people in the same day. So they are very, very uh, pressured for time. And therefore, you will walk into a meeting and they will ask you predetermined questions. And they will keep the same structure for all candidates. That's one approach, right? So you could have prepared a lot of stuff, and but they will follow their own predetermined. And there are also, these are not rocket science questions. I mean, I'll share maybe 1 or 2 examples, uh, but that could be one way of the interview that you might face. The second one could be a very unstructured interview. In this particular case, this happens when you're invited for an interview. It's not like it's been advertised to like 10, 15, 20 people. So maybe there are a couple of the applicants only. And then there's more of a conversational approach, flexible. People will spend time to get to know you. They might ask you things about your background. It's more of a, let's say, a casual chit chat, but it isn't also, because it's still an interview and they're still trying to find out who you are, but it's more conversational. You might have also panel interviews. I remember that back in my time when I was at LUMS, there were some companies coming to LUMS. I think it was ICI. They would love to bring a panel of interviewers. Like you'll walk into a room and you'll have 4 people looking at you. It's always very overwhelming, when you walk into that room. and see 3 or 4 people, because not all of them might be even asking questions. But I think it is what it is, and so you need to really understand. And this is part of the prep, to try and find out what sort of an interview you might be walking into. Sometimes organizations tell you, sometimes you hear from your friends who might have been in. Sometimes you can even go to your career advancement office, and they might be able to get some insights for you. But you know, and then finally, a lot of companies, and not necessarily at entry level positions, but some companies also do it. We also do it. We have psychometric and numerical assessments. These are more technical assessments. Typically, they're done before the actual physical interview. I'm not covering that today because obviously that's a slightly different area. I could spend another hour on that. Um, but typically, what happens is you're asked to come in to do a psychometric and numerical assessment. It's online mostly, and it's run through different organizations. And the outcome of those assessments then lead to an interview after that. So, anyway, so these are different types of interviews that you could potentially expect. How you show up in them, how you prepare for them. I would say the method to prepare for any of them will be more or less the same. I don't think that you can do anything different, whether you're going for a structured one or an unstructured or a panel. It's still about the prep. It's still about knowing the role. It's still about knowing, yourself and how you want to show up. So, but it's good to always be aware what sort of interview you might be walking into, because the better informed you are, the more confidence you will have in order to be able to approach that conversation. Okay. Um Bit of a pause. Let me go back and see if everybody's still with me. All good so far, Yusra?
Yes, all good.
All right, excellent. Are there any questions from anyone? Any questions, comments, thoughts? I mean, it's okay. I can take it now and I can also take it later as well. Okay, cool. I have a 10-second rule for this question, by the way. When I say if there's any questions in 10 seconds, no questions, I move on. So I would assume that there's no questions. All right. Okay. So, yeah, so those are the different types of interviews you could potentially expect. And then, yeah, so these are some of the types of questioning that you will potentially face from the interviewers. Um, and again, this is not an exhaustive list. There could be more. There could be also less. But let's say let's look at these 2 or 3 different things. So the first one could be situational questions. Um, Typically, it goes very simply like, what would you do if you were faced with a big crisis in the team, and how would you bring people together? I think this could be one of the situational questions, and it could also be about, can you give me a few examples of that? So it's always good to have some very specific examples ready. We tend to come up with 5, 8, 10 different examples. That's not necessary. I think 1 or 2 good ones are more important than a whole different list of different examples. The second technique you might face from the interviewer could be around very job specific skills and knowledge. So it could go into, if you're a marketing graduate, if you're an economics graduate, computer science, whatever it is, it could go into a very technical discussion about how do you handle a situation where you've been briefed by the client on delivering a certain marketing campaign, and how would you put that together. So it could be very technical. And the first one is more situational. And then the third one is very much about you as a person and how you show up. And this is very behavioral. So it's got nothing to do with your technique or your experience or your knowledge. It's more about how you perform as an individual in certain situations. So people could ask you, tell me of a time where you were faced with a dramatic situation in your life. How did you overcome it? What did you do? What was the result? Sort of a thing. And they're really looking for examples around your behavior. How did you actually behave in those situations? This could be about the time when you were applying to LUMS and you were able to land a scholarship to get into LUMS. How did you do that? So it doesn't have to be about when you worked. It could be about any achievement that you feel proud of, but more importantly, how you behaved as an individual in order to address that specific situation. Right. So, like I said, it's not exhaustive. These are some of the questioning techniques. Others could be very casual. I mean, I've been in interviews where, as an interviewer, but also as an interviewee, where I sat in a discussion for 2 hours. At my level, because I'm at the regional president position, I meet board members, I meet CEOs. the companies, they don't hardly ever ask any question about uh, the job specific side of things, and it's mostly 2 hours, 2.5 hours. You're sitting next to somebody having a cup of tea or coffee, and all you're doing is they're just wanting to get to know of you as a human, as a person, because that's most important for them. So, it could be very conversational as well. It could be very strict as well. It could be very flexible. It really depends down to the interviewer, but also the culture of the organization. But yeah, this would be, let's say, some of the areas at which you could be spending some time to prepare. Uh, I had a video of a good versus a bad interview. I don't know if it will play. Let's give it a try. Please let me know if you can hear it. Should we give it a shot? Maybe just to break the slide and the. So this is how you would sort of see a good versus a bad interview situation, right? So let's see if it works. I pause it. Do you guys hear it? See the video and hear the sound?
We can see the video but can't hear it.
Mm.
Can't hear it. Okay. So I think I'm gonna have to enable. Maybe it's in the settings. Okay, in case if it doesn't work, I can also send the link out. So typically, it should just go through the computer. That's why I wanted to stop and check, because that happens a lot. Yep, I'm not able to figure it out. Let me run it for like 5 seconds. Yusra, please let me know if after 5 seconds also you're not able to hear it. And then if not,
Sure.
I can just send the link out to you.
Sure, sure. There's no sound.
Anything? No sound, okay. Let me see if it's because it's connected to my AirPods. Never mind. I think it's just a slight sort of funny video that shows you a good versus so it's called the good, the bad, and the hired at the interview. If you Google it on YouTube, or if you check it, you just search for it. Otherwise, I'll send a link out to Yusra and she can share that with you guys. It's kind of shows you how you can show up as two different people, and one obviously gets hired, the other one doesn't. So some perspective to get on that. But never mind. So let's maybe move to the final, so the second last slide that I have, and I think this is one of the things that I always recommend to people on um, one of the techniques on how you can address questions in a discussion, right? And I call it the CAR approach. And the reason why it's called CAR is because it's context, action, and result. So typically, when you get asked a question in an interview, like somebody would say, "Can you tell me of one of your most significant achievements that you are very, very proud of?" Obviously, that is a very simple, straightforward question. How you address that question is the most important part for the person who's asking. Um, so typically, what I suggest is please break it into three parts. When you're asked a question like that, set the context first and foremost to say, okay, I have one example that I would like to share. Let me give you a little bit of background. I was, just about to graduate from my A levels or my whatever university, and I was applying for a scholarship at LUMS, and it was very, very important for me that I get that scholarship. So this was the context, right? And you can give the personal challenge. Maybe you were not able to afford that degree yourself, and therefore the scholarship was super critical for you. Maybe there was something else, right? So you set the context, and then you go about and explain the actions that you took. So describe the action you took to address the issue. I actually spoke with a number of my friends. I went and I wrote an email to LUMS. I wrote personal statement that I had to use to apply. I prepared for my SATs, whatever. I mean, so it could be a lot of different things that you've done specifically about you, and then give the result. What was the outcome of that action? So a lot of times what happens is we get asked that question and we tend to jump straight into the, okay, yeah, I once landed this and I got a scholarship or whatever. But you don't explain how you end up doing it. When the interviewer is asking a question like this, they're really interested in the whole of it. They're not just looking to understand the action, the result, sorry, but they also want to understand what was the background, what were the actions particularly that you took, and you can then expect some questions around the action area, right? So then they can actually go a little bit deeper in that area. But the car approach tends to work very well. I have used it myself. I think in my last 22 years of my career, whichever interview I went for, and I've also used it as an interviewer when I'm interviewing other people, because that's what I would be expecting from them. And those who do come up and give a very structured answer, putting it into those three buckets, typically tend to also, sort of fare well in terms of the interview. So that would be it. I think we've got about 15 minutes or so remaining to go. Um, I don't have any more slides from my side, so I'm just going to come out of this PowerPoint. I'll stop presenting, and what I was hoping to do is one or two things. We could either do some role plays now, if there are any very brave volunteers out there on this call. I would be the interviewer. I will be we could try that. If anyone is interested, you can put your hand up. This is not compulsive, of course, so no, you're not forced to do it. But if not, then I could also just take some questions, broad questions. I'll be very happy to answer them. You guys are all coming into your sort of uh, already now this year, or maybe coming soon into the real world, and um, we've all been in that position. I was in that same position as you guys a couple of decades ago. So I didn't have this kind of counseling at the time. I think LUMS was still in its early years at the moment. So we learned a lot of things ourselves or through the hard way. But if I'm able to help any of you guys and you end up landing a nice role, then I would be very, very, very happy about that for you. Uh, so first question: any volunteers for a quick role play? Does anybody feel brave enough to put their hand up and would like to show up as an interviewee while I do a little role play as an interviewer with you guys? I followed the 10-second principle, Yusra.
Oh, sure. Anyone, this is a very good chance to practice your interview, the upcoming interview. Oh, yes, we have Isa.
Excellent.
Yes, Isa.
Yes, sir. Ask away.
Hello, hi Isa, how are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine. How about you?
I'm good. I think it'll be great if I can see you. If it's okay? I mean, unless if you are like dressed really casually and you don't want to, but it's always nice to be able to see you.
Just a second.
Can you see this window here, Yusra? The one that says recording has started. If I close it, I hope the recording continues.
Yes,
It
you
is
can
just,
close it.
it's just that it was right on top of Isa's. Excellent. Very nice to see you. And you already get the brownie points for being the bravest one on this group. So Isa, well done.
Thank you.
Okay, so let me lay out for you a small, slight brief and the context as to what you're coming in to do. And then, we'll try and do a role play and I'll ask you a few questions and we'll see how it goes. Yeah. So basically, you're applying for a summer internship. Let's say that I am working at Reckitt Benckiser. I don't know what your background is in terms of your experience and stuff, but you hear about a summer internship program at Reckitt Benckiser. It's a very exciting opportunity. You're going to be working with the marketing team. They're about to launch a new product. Okay, you've heard of Dettol, of course. Let's say it's Dettol, and it's a new variant of hand wash. And you're going to be part of that team, and you will be helping to prepare the marketing campaign. That's what you hear about on the grapevine. You apply for the job. Okay, and you come in and this is your first chance. It's a paid internship, so there's also good money involved, and this can actually lead into a full-time job if you do your job well during the internship program. That's the context, right? Okay, so let's do a quick role play for 5 minutes. So let's start then. Isa, can you start by giving me a little bit of background about yourself, please?
So my name is Isa, and I'm currently about to start my fourth year at LUMS. My major is economics and political science, and before LUMS, I have done international baccalaureate diploma program as well from Big House College, Campus Gulberg.
Excellent, excellent. What excites you about this opportunity, Isa?
So one of the exciting things is to work with a renowned brand and work with a new project that is going to be impactful for the new generation or the current generation. So,
Excellent. And you know that this is a marketing role. So can you tell me of any experience you might have had working in any kind of a marketing project or marketing assignment, either as part of your degree at LUMS or outside of that?
so I haven't have any experience with marketing, but I am eager to learn, and inshallah, I will be a good asset to that.
Excellent. I appreciate the very honest approach. And okay, so let me ask you a different question. Can you give me an example of a key achievement? And you can only have one. So think about a time which is something that you are very, very proud of that you have achieved in your life to this point. And can you tell me what that is?
So I'm currently working in a stealth startup called Zeros, and before I joined Zeros, they used to write articles on their tools. They make demos for their tools, so they used to write articles for their tools using AI. They completely used AI, copy pasted from the chat gpt, and added to the website. So when I came, there was a problem that Google was banning websites that were using too much AI. So the problem was, so the task was given to me that I have to find a solution. So I used different techniques to create protocols that would humanify the articles that were created through AI. So I made those protocols, and those protocols were implemented on the articles, and thankfully we were not banned by Google.
Excellent. I think that's a great example. And what was the result of the whole situation then, as a result, as an outcome?
So we were able to humify all the articles, and our website went uh, live without any difficulties.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much, Isa. Do you have any questions for me as part of this interview?
So what kind of what kind of culture or work ethic is expected by me, by you for this work?
Excellent question. So I'm going to stop the role play now, but I think you asked a fantastic question at the end, by the way. And I don't know how many people are there, but I really would like to congratulate. I think the way you approach all the steps, I'm asking you questions on the go, and the way you approached it, even the last question about the key achievement, I think you structured it very well. You gave the context, you specifically specified what actions you took, and then the outcome at the end of that, right? So I think if I was interviewing you for an actual summer internship, I would hire you. Let me put it this way. So, uh, no, I think that was very well done, Isa. Thanks a lot. And also, again, I wish you all the success. I think in the future as well. And at the end, the question that you asked me, I think it's a perfect question for anybody going for an interview like that. Work ethics, cultural fit, core values about the organization. I know that these are always important points, but for the generation at this particular point in time, I think to have that good fit with the organization culture is becoming even more important today. So great. So I think that was one example. I think we can continue doing all of this. I enjoy the whole process of interviewing and giving interviews and also sitting through interviews as well. I don't get to do that so much now because obviously I have, like there are people in my team who would do it. But I think that was thing. And what I would now do is also open up the floor if there are any Q&As, any questions, any thoughts, comments. I can share the slides with you, Yusra, in case if you would like to make it available to the students. Like I said, it's not very technical, it's very commonsensical stuff. But if there are any questions anybody has, I'll be very happy to also address them right now. So put your hand up and you go for it.
Isa has
Yes,
a
I
question.
will.
So one of the questions interviewers usually ask is that um, how can you help the organization grow? So for an internship position, we cannot say that much because we are in an entry level job. We are not like a managerial job or a high level job that we can drive the company in any certain direction. So how would we tackle that kind of question?
That's an excellent point. I think it comes down to so first of all, you might already understand, you might already have a job description in which they might have identified that you're coming in to work on a project which is about defining a plan, a marketing plan to fight competitors, right, and drive market share, for instance. So if that is the kind of a brief, I think the best thing to do is to say, well, I've seen, I went into the into let's just use Reckitt as an example, right? Because Reckitt is a good is a consumer goods company. So, for example, they might want to drive market share of Dettol as a brand. You could actually just say that, I've gone into the market, I've seen how you are performing versus the rest of your competitors. In my limited capacity, it would be my aim to see that we as a brand are always outperforming the competitors, right? So it's a I fully understand the question that you're asking, because this is too big, too much of a it's too large a responsibility that a organization might want to put on top, on an intern. But I think that you can be very casual, and what you've just said, I think, is also very is okay to say, I'm bringing in my all in. I'm coming in with my full energy, with my full intent, with my full commitment to whatever task you guys assign to me, and in my capacity as an intern, I would do whatever it takes to support the growth agenda of the company, right? I think you can turn that question around in a way that is still, let's say, reflects to them that you have the commitment and the drive to be able to do that, without necessarily trying to say that, oh, I'm the CEO, or I'm not the CEO, how can you ask me this question? So it's really about how you approach the question, right? You could have the knowledge, like I said. So, for example, if you're aware that it's about a brand, about Dettol, and you are part of it, then you could have done your research. You could have gone out into the market, seen where Dettol's weak points are, and then you can come in and say, I went out there, I checked, maybe this is a specific area you can improve. Like, I don't know, on social media, maybe Dettol is not very well represented, and that could be an area. Or it could be a generic question that they ask you, in which case you can turn it around and make it more of a leadership and a behavior reply, that to say that, I thrive in challenging situations, and although I don't know the specifics of what I would be expected to do in this internship, but I will have the drive and the will and the commitment. And let me give you an example on how I approached a similar situation in a different setup. And in that case, use your example, the one that you just shared with us, Isa, which is this, when you worked on that project. So it's all about being present, really understanding the question, and then, but I wouldn't. So one thing I would recommend that people don't do, because it's very, very visible to interviewers, and I excuse my language, but it's okay. We're all friends and colleagues here, so I wouldn't bullshit the interviewer, right? I mean, don't say stuff which is not going to fly, right? So keep it real. Um, you know, keep it. It's fine to be vulnerable and say, sorry, I'm not even sure what I'm fully expected to deliver, but in my limited capacity, whatever, these are the things that I bring to the table, right? So what you need to offer them is what you bring to the table as a person. Does that help with the question at all, or?
Yes, that
Okay,
helps.
all right, we have one more hand up. I think it's Faisal. Go for it, Faisal. It'll be nice to see you as well.
Right. Uh, I would not be able to open my camera right now, but
It's okay.
I just want
It's
to
okay.
ask, like regarding feedback. For example, when like I just gave multiple interviews during the summers, and I just reached out for feedback, but no one responded. So is it a good strategy to reach out if you give a good interview and you think that you will be selected, but ultimately you are not selected? So is it a good strategy to reach out, and if it is, then how should we approach it? How should we reach out so that they actually respond?
Very good. I think it's a great question, and thanks for asking it, because this is where employers and companies can be very, very bad or very, very good. I can tell you that in my organization, I have a 48-hour principle. So once when we interview somebody, within 48 hours, they should get a feedback whether that interview was successful, they will move forward, or even if in case, unfortunately, they were not successful, we tell them, unfortunately, you've not been successful at this stage, and therefore we will not be taking your application any further, right? But a lot of companies, and I would say 99% go silent. And I think that is disrespectful to the applicants, but unfortunately it happens, and it happens to a lot of people. So it's not just at internship level, it can happen at senior positions level as well. Now, yes, you should follow up. There is no right or wrong way of following up, Faisal. I mean, because ultimately you can all. So when you follow up, I think that it's the frequency of the follow up and the type of follow up, right? I wouldn't send an email every day for sure, because first of all, if they've not responded to you, there's a very high chance that they are not proceeding with the application. So because if an organization has taken the time to interview people, and they are also looking to conclude that process, like I said in my first slide, that employers also want it to be successful. So typically you would hear back within a week maximum, I would say. If you haven't, that probably could be a sign. This also not does not necessarily mean that they're not moving ahead. Maybe something else happened. Some people are on holidays, particularly summer. Summer period is very much about people going away on leave. So I would say stay patient, but do follow up, because also when you follow up, it at least shows to them that you are keen. I would time the frequency though in an appropriate manner. So the first week, definitely nothing. A week after that, you could send a reminder to say, I've just wanted to follow up to see, if I could get some feedback. And that's where, what you write is also important, right? You don't have to ask the question, am I successful or not? No, I would word it differently and say, can I please have some feedback from the interview that I gave? And in that question, you're keeping it very open for them, right? They can come back to you and say these things worked well, or these things didn't work well, sort of a thing. But let's suppose if you have had that interview and you've done one or two follow-ups, and I would time them at, let's say, two follow-ups. I think I wouldn't do any more than that. 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks in between. I think that we should be more than enough. And if you're still not hearing back from them, trust me, that organization is not for you also, because if they don't show you the courtesy and the decency of replying back to a simple request, that also already tells you that's probably not the best organization. And what I would do is, in your position, is report that to the career office. So at least the career office can then take it up with the organization to say. And I think this is where maybe lumps can play a role. So any employers who are coming to the campus for hiring, I think lumps should draw at least an expectation from them that they should provide feedback, timely feedback to those people that they interview. Because if they're not committed to even doing that, they're wasting everyone's time. This would be my perspective, because I take this very seriously as an employer. So
Sure,
I would
sure.
follow up. Yeah, I would follow up, Faisal, but do it not more than, let's say, once or twice. And then when you do send the question should be more about, can you please share the feedback from my interview for the role that I applied for? That should be it. Not more than that. Do I have the job? Do I not? I wouldn't ask any of those questions.
All
Right,
right.
perfect.
Are there any more questions before we end the session? You're going to follow Adil's 10-second rule. Any more questions? Okay, Faraz.
Hi, Faraz. And we have Mariam as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much for the session. I just had one question, is that how do you negotiate salaries in your, let's say, your initial HR interview? Because I don't know, but in the companies that I applied, I think they make the salary expectation a big thing, and often, more often than not, when I do convey my salary expectations, they usually don't even respond for the next stage. So you're in that predicament where you don't want to undersell yourself, but also you want to, uh, move into the company that you want to. So how do you navigate through that? Thank you.
Very good question. Thanks for that, Faraz. My typical tip or advice to people is not to bring up salary from your end at all in the first couple of interviews, right? You need to have that discussion only once when you are getting to an offer stage. Because to your point, this can be a very tricky question. A lot of professional companies, big companies, I would say, I don't know about the medium size and the local companies, but the big organizations have their own internally defined set criteria for how much they pay for summer internship or every job band, right? So like, for example, I would know that if I'm hiring an assistant brand manager based in Dubai, assistant brand manager would get paid about 15,000 dirhams a month. That's a set rule. We probably go plus minus 5 or 10% above that or below that, depending on the situation, but it's a set defined band, right? So I typically always advise people, don't bring up the salary. So, but what I understand from you is you might be in the situation where they ask you what your expectation is. Now, that is indeed a very tricky discussion, and it goes down to a couple of things. So, I think what one thing I suggest is prepare for this question by checking with people that you know, maybe who are working in that organization, or people who know somebody else who works there, of how much typically they do pay for a position that you're applying, right? And these things are common knowledge. You can find out through contacts, friends, ex-alumni, and have that sort of a figure ready. Now, if you don't have a figure ready, my advice would be to say, I'm not able to give an answer about this, about the salary expectation. Just be open about it and say, I'm not able to give an answer about this because I don't know your salary uh, uh, um, uh, packages that you offer. However, I am more interested in the challenge, and therefore when we get to the stage, I would be, obviously the salary is important, but for me the most important part is to get this experience working in your company. And the reason why this would be a good answer is, it's not like you're saying that money is not important for you. It's just that you're not making money the reason why they should choose or not choose. The second you say a figure, that kind of gives them a reason to exclude you from any future interviews or process, right? So I would leave that open, take it a bit more tactical approach to it. When you get to the offer stage, they will anyhow make you an offer, right? If that salary offer is not suitable to you, you can always walk away and say, no, this does not work for me. And you can negotiate at that point in time. But I would not, at the initial early stages of interviews, when you're being interviewed, I would really make it more about you, your skill set, your what you bring to the table. And if they value it well enough, then they will make you a good offer for sure. But if they're also underselling to you the job, I mean, you can check about it in the market and you can go and negotiate a little bit, right? So, but I always advise people not to bring money into the early conversations of the interview process, because it can completely backfire. Sometimes it can work in your favor. So therefore, don't put a figure to it. Avoid that unless if you're aware that that is what a company is paying at that stage. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. We had a question also from Mariam, I think.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
So I just completed my first year at LUMS and I was applying for summer internships. Now there was this question that that every interviewer asks, right? It's a very general question, but it was a prioritization question. What would you prioritize? Would you prioritize your academic commitments over this position, or how will you manage this professional capacity along with your personal commitments? Now I don't really understand what they're trying to like. Obviously the more simpler answer to this question would be that I'll manage my time efficiently, I'll just plan ahead. But I think they are looking for something else and they're just trying to assess something else. So could you just give some feedback over this?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, first of all, it is a standard question that you might get asked, and the reason why they're asking this is they want to see a couple of things. First of all, they want to see how committed you are to the internship, to the job that you're applying for, but also how you approach a situation where you have multitasking, ahead of you, and you have multiple priorities, and how do you approach that? I think the answer that you said, Mariam, is the right one, to say that, of course, I'm very cognizant. And if it's about prioritizing and they ask you, I mean, I would be simply honest and say, yeah, my degree is my biggest priority at this point in time. My summer internship gives me the required necessary skills from the real world, from the corporate world, that I want to acquire as I gain my degree. But my biggest commitment to myself and my family at this particular point in time is my academic degree. So this supports it, but this does not replace it. However, what I again always suggest, have some examples ready to say, let me give you an example of how I have been able to manage multiple priorities in my life in the past. So you could have an example where you had multiple projects or assignments that you were supposed to deliver on. You had an exam the next day, and you had a wedding, a cousin's wedding to attend on the weekend, and some travel lined up. I don't know. You could have that, and you can just say that. Let me give you an example of how I've been able to manage. I was very clear that my priorities are A, B, and C. Therefore, this is how I structured my time. This is how I prepared, and this was the outcome of it. So, but I think it's a question people ask generally to assess your, your time management skills, your prioritization skills, but also at the same time, how you are looking at that particular role and how what you feel about that. So let me reverse the situation. If they ask you this question, you say, you know what? I'm very clear. My first and foremost priority is my summer internship. I don't care what happens to my academic degree. That would not go very well with any interviewer because while yes, they would appreciate the fact that you are valuing the internship over your academic degree, but it kind of shows that you're not committed seriously to the major task at hand. And the next question I guarantee you would be, but why is that? The summer internship is only 3 months or 2 months. You're really willing to give up your academic degree just for a 2 to 3 months assignment? That doesn't make any sense. So I think that is really what they're trying to assess of you as an individual on how you manage various different priorities. Best way is stay true to your answer, give them examples of how you've managed similar situations in the past and how you've always come on top, and then that's basically it, right? I mean, it should always be about, you should always come across as you. Don't ever compromise, because that's very important. uh, and I know that you guys won't anyways, but it's not just about pleasing the audience for that very short period of time to come across as somebody who you're not, because they will find out eventually. And I also, like I said, I don't think that that would be the organization you want to work with, who says, when you're working here, do not open a book or do not prepare for your next assignment. No, I mean, I tell you, we have interns working in our company at the moment. We ask them the same question. We then ask them to provide us their actual schedule of the. So my HR team, what they would do is when we're hiring interns, is they ask them to provide their university schedule to them, so they can see when their sessions are running. And then we structure their working hours around their sessions. So if they have an assignment coming up, exams coming up, some people have classes 3 days in a week, and the other 2 days they're free. So we don't ask them to come to the office or work for those 3 days. They work for those 2 days when they don't have sessions, so they can focus on the study. So the real organizations who really want to bring interns in also adapt their ways of approaching them in ways that suit them, right? But they will still ask you this question because obviously they want to see who you are and how you structure work. Does that help? Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're most welcome.
All right. Any more questions? I think you've pretty much explained everything. Thank you so much, Adil, for your time and
The
for this
pleasure.
insightful session. It was very engaging and very informative. And thank you all for your presence. Stay tuned for the upcoming mentorship sessions. Have a very good day. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, Yusra. Thanks to all the attendees as well, and particularly your attention. I wish you all the very best for your future. And I'm very sure and very, very confident you guys will be very successful going forward. If there's anything that I can do to help Yusra, let me know. All the
Sure,
best to you
sure.
guys. Have a great week. Have a great week ahead, guys. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Allah Hafiz.